Fall camp is here. Yes, it's that time. Football is around the corner. I know volleyball is around the corner. There's other sports that are around the corner. I worked in player development college football at the University of Houston, Kansas, and Baylor. And so this is the time when college football fall camp starts. And this being a player development pod, I forgot to introduce myself. My name is Ed Jones. I'm the founder of Beyond the Field, where we help people create impactful player development plans. With this being the start of fall camp, in the player development position, fall camp can be super important. This is where you have a lot of time. You're in the building a long time. In some of these videos you'll see today, I'll talk about the schedule, but fall camp, I used to be in the building from 4:30, I kid you not, 4:30 to like 10. And so you have a lot of time around players, and there's a lot of things you could do to impact players. These are the two times, fall camp and spring ball, the two times that I do not do a lot of programming because there's competition going on, and there's a lot of time that you have that you can be around the players. But there's no time like fall camp. Most of you all, if you just got the job, you're going into your first fall camp, and this is where you can get to know the team very well and where they know they can count on you. So let's talk about the four tips that you need fall camp. Now, before we dive deep, some of you all like player development. What is that? Player development is defined, or I define it as the enhancement of the athlete experience through holistic and intentional programs and initiatives. And so that's what we'll be talking about from that aspect of player development. How do we help the overall experience? Now, these four tips, I did 4 separate videos last year. I'm going to combine them together this year to talk about fall camp. And the first video you're going to watch, the first tip is I got the board. My wife bought me this board. She saw what I could do with it way before I did, and I lost the screws to put in the wall, so we're gonna do this. Hey, we're gonna make it happen. If you're in player development, you know you have to make it happen. All right, so the first tip is you need to always know the schedule. You need to always know the schedule. The schedule, like every fall camp I've been in, like I said, when I was at the University of Houston, University of Kansas, or Baylor in a row, the first week is about the same, and then everything changes. And so you always want to make sure that you understand the schedule. It is very important because these players are going to be asking you about it. It helps you with different times you get a chance to meet up with players, or players can come to your office. So the first tip in the role for you is to know the schedule. Check out this video here that details that more for you. Fall camp is here. I remember in 2016, this was my first fall camp, not being a high school coach, and I'm at the University of Houston, and shout out to the staff that hired me there. I'm in the restroom talking to a coach. I'm like, man, this fall camp, it'd be my first one not being a coach. It's probably not gonna be as intense. And the coach was like, Jones, you have no idea. Jones, it's like putting your face on a train and a train running over your face. This fall camp stuff is crazy. I was like, whoa, okay. I got it, coach. But he honestly was telling me absolute truth. And so I have this fall camp series for you all. Just talk about player development fall camp. Before I get into tip number one, I just want to talk about this great opportunity that you all in player development have during fall camp, and you all that want to get in the role. Fall camp to me is one of the most foundational aspects of the season. You know, it's a great time for the young men to compete for positions. For football, if you have another sport, maybe it's young women, but the opportunity to compete for the position. And you all have heard me talk multiple times about not programming during fall camp, but there is a lot you can do in the player development role during fall camp. You know, the biggest thing is being there for the players. Now, their schedule is packed from 6 a.m. to whenever, right, with things to do, but they will find time to be around the people they care for. And so you want to make sure in the role that you are one of those people. You're there, you're available for them, you see them, you're saying hello to them at practice. You know, some of the times I found out in fall camp when players are most vulnerable are when they're eating, when they're in the training room, when they're in transition to practice, and when they're in transition to meetings. Outside of course, coming to your room and just giving you everything. But you have those opportunities during fall camp. You're there all day with them. And one thing I did in fall camp, outside of making sure I was there for them, was you watch body language. You watch habits. You know, you can start seeing players get annoyed of going against their teammates day after day. You can see them get annoyed of their coaches, annoyed by the heat, just annoyed without the annoyed, with the aspect of not having really an outside life during this time. So you all that are in player development, fall camp is a great opportunity, an incredible opportunity to dive into relationships. I'll use one example. I had my first year in player development at the University of Houston. We had a young cornerback, freshman, who was, part of this highly touted recruiting class, and it was tough. He was the man on his campus, and first week was tough. A lot of not being in the right position, a lot of being on the end of some tense moments because he's out of place, coaches getting after him. And I remember eating breakfast with him, and he was just like, man, like, coach, this is tough. Like, I don't know if I could do it. And I was able to encourage him. And as time went on, he started making plays. He started spending more time watching film. He started to get things done. And in 2 weeks, or by the end of week 2, you start to see a smile on his face. But I always think back to that moment of sitting down with that young man and just encouraging him and saying, hey, you're supposed to be here. You're supposed to be here. And that's just one example of the moments you have during player development. I've heard, I've been able, some players have shared with me that they have kids on the way. I've known, unfortunately, when kids are going to move on or quit or transfer, whatever it may be, make the best decision for themselves. But once again, you get all these opportunities in fall camp. So you all are getting ready for fall camp, truly excited for you. Make the most of it. You all that have training camp internships, I saw my guy Alexander Martin post this on LinkedIn, and you're in either player engagement, you're around the players, or you're just in the building. If you're in the building, you want a career in this field, and you're in the building during training camp, make the most of it because you're around the players so much. You're around the coaching staff. You have a great opportunity to make an impact. Now, let's get to tip number 1 of fall camp for player development. Okay, anyway. All right, so fall camp, for you all that are listening to this and you've listened to that, I guess you would call it monologue. Before getting to this point, you may say, well, what is fall camp? What is he talking about? Fall camp is the preparation for the season. It is normally starts in August, and it's about 3 to 4 weeks where it's just, I was looking for a schedule to show you all, but I didn't have one. But it's just intense football. You wake up, breakfast, film, walkthrough, practice, meal, lift, walkthrough, practice, film. Well, not practice. We don't do 2 days anymore. Lift, walkthrough, film, walkthrough, film. It's just meal. It's just boop, boop, boop. They know where they're going, right? And so fall camp, it has to happen before the season. Once again, as I said earlier, I think it's the most pivotal part going into the season. It's a grind for everybody. I don't know one person who's ever been in a fall camp who's been like, yay, fall camp. I love fall camp. Now, I'll admit, you love it the first day. It's like, man, the new season's here. And actually, I was at the Chiefs training camp this past weekend, and I miss fall camp, miss training camp. I miss it. But there are some things that I don't think a lot of people like in fall camp. Fall camp can be very stressful for not only players, but the staff and their families. Now, let me go back. When you're planning for fall camp, you start having meetings in July. So in July, you start having meetings with either your chief of staff or director of operations, and they're talking about fall camp. They're showing you schedules. They're talking about where people are going to be. Maybe you're taking the players off campus, hotel, another city, whatever it may be. But they're talking about how it's going to look. And most likely when they do it, after the talks, you're going to get something like this on your desk, right? A fall camp manual. In the fall camp manual, this is the rule book for fall camp. And so tip number 1 for fall camp is to know the daily schedule. Now, those fall camp, it could be a packet, it could be a 3-ring binder, it could be one of these binded notebook thingies, but they're gonna have a detailed calendar for every single day of camp. It is an incredible document put together, but every single minute is marked in that whatever you want to call it, this guide to the entire camp. It's marked. Sorry, I had a little there, but it's marked. And you, as a player development professional, need to know the schedule. Now, I'll say this: it's great to start. And when I used to get those things, I used to put it in my personal calendar, my work calendar. I used to write it in my calendar. I wrote it on my board. I let my wife know. It really gets like that because you have to know the schedule, because if you miss the wrong time or you get one day mixed up with another day, that can knock you off the track, right? And so you have to know your daily calendar. Now, the first couple days, it kind of sticks to script, but as you know, anything with schedules or anything with sports, it's going to change. And so when it changes, you have to communicate with the people who know the changes are coming. And the reason why it's so important to know the changes and to know the daily schedule is because most of the time in the role, I not only communicated with players, but I also communicated with staff or other people in different roles who were servicing our players, be it equipment, be it the strength staff, be it our nutrition dietitian staff, sports med, they normally knew before anybody, be it other people. I was able to communicate that with our players and other staff members. So when you know it's updated, and I didn't even care if it wasn't updated. Like they could literally print it and put it on my desk. And some places did that. Shout out to those director ops that did that. They would get up before everybody and put a new one on your desk if it was different than what was in the manual. And so even though they would put that on my desk, I would go in their office and annoy them. Sorry to all of you all that I annoyed, and say, hey, is this the schedule for today? Why? Because as I said earlier, I had to stay on top of it. Now, my first couple years in it, not even first couple years, my first week, I learned this lesson, and it just made it made a big difference for me in the role from that point on, because you're sitting there looking at the schedule like, oh, 1:30, they said it'll be, break, and then they switch and 1:30 is now a walkthrough because the weather has changed camp. So you could have changes because of the weather. Coaching staff sees something. It could be the amount of players available. There's a lot of different things that can change the schedule. At one university, at the University of Houston, some of our players were actually in class during the start of fall camp. Either the start or either like towards the end, but they were in class. And so that changed some of our schedules. So you gotta stay on top of the schedule. If you're in the role during fall camp, please know the daily schedule. It is so important to know for your role because you service so many players that need to know where to go, and it just helps you in the role know where to be so you can be most effective when communicating with players and being that person, that consistent person they see all throughout fall camp. All right, there it is. Knowing the schedule will be so vital for you as you show up for so many in the role. Now, let's jump to tip number 2. Tip number 2 is you need to check on your newcomers. Now, I don't want to take too much fire because you'll hear it in the video after this, but this is a very important part of the role. You have a lot of newcomers, and a lot of you all, a lot different. When I was enrolled, transfer portal was kind of getting kicked around, but a lot of you all, some of y'all getting guys that just showed up. And so you have to check on the newcomers. You have to know where they are. You have to know that they understand the culture, know they understand where to go, where to be, different things like that. You want to check on them throughout camp. I'll talk about a story in the video. At the University of Houston, got to check on a young man. It actually helped him. He started playing well. He started playing better because I was encouraging him. So you want to check on your newcomers, your high schoolers, your transfers. I used to even check on some of the newer coaches or newer staff if I had been there for a while. So check out this video that gives you more details on how to check on your newcomers. Hey, Jones, how the freshmen doing, Jones? Coach, I don't know. I haven't been out there. Jones, how the freshmen doing, Jones? How are my freshmen doing? This was me in 2013 under head coach Pedro McGinnis, my guy at my alma mater, Hightower High School. And the one thing I learned from that is during fall camp, make sure you know what the newcomers are doing. Know where they are. Check on the newcomers. So my fall camp tip number 2 is to check on the newcomers, all the newcomers. Shout out to Coach Matt for giving me that lesson early in my career as a high school coach of the importance of checking on the newcomers, knowing where they're at, and making sure their transition in is a smooth one. I am so excited to continue our fall camp series. If you checked out fall camp tip number 1, thank you for coming back. Also give a like. If you checked it out, like it right here. Click the like button. But let's jump into it. Fall camp tip number 2. Fall camp tip number 2 is to check on the newcomers. You want to make sure during this time. Last week we talked about knowing the schedule for fall camp tip number 1. Tip number 2, check on the newcomers. You always want to check on the newcomers for fall camp. Did they do fall camp in high school? Yes, but I worked in college football for 6 years, and college football fall camp is like nothing they've ever seen. Matter of fact, let me read a schedule for you. Life in Ball put this on Instagram. This is a fall camp schedule. Y'all, this is crazy. And the ones I was in, it started way before 7 o'clock. I'll start with that. I will find my University of Houston fall camp schedule and read that out to you. But breakfast, 7 a.m. Breakfast and treatment, 7 a.m. 8 a.m. team meeting. 8:45 position meetings. 10 o'clock study hall academic orientation for newcomers. 10 a.m. treatment. 11:30 lunch. 12 taping begins. 1:15 special teams meeting. 1:35 position meetings. 2:20 pre-practice. 2:45 practice begins. 4:45 practice ends. 5 o'clock dinner. 6:30 treatment. 7:45 special teams meeting. 8:05 position meetings. 9 o'clock walkthrough. 9:45 walkthrough ends. They get a snack. 10:30 curfew. That is a packed day. A high school student athlete would not have experienced that at the high school level. Partly because you can't have near that many hours, and it probably is illegal in a lot of states. But either way, they would not have experienced that. And so you want to make sure that they are okay. Like I said, tip 1, make sure they know the schedule. Make sure you know the schedule to tell them to know the schedule. After a couple days of doing this, this is taxing on them. This is taxing on them mentally and of course physically. But you want to be there to check on the newcomers. So what do? When they're going to grab lunch, breakfast, whenever they're eating, go sit down with them. Hey, are you okay? How's it going? How's the transition? How is it? Talk to them. You see them in treatment? Talk to them. Before the lift, talk to them. Transition, talk to them. So you want to make sure that you're taking time to make sure your newcomers on your campus are doing okay for fall camp. Now, I will say this as well. Check on all newcomers. One of the best things that happened to me when I got hired at the University of Houston in 2016 was the staff that was used to the fall camp made sure that I understood what was going on in this fall camp, my first college football fall camp. They always checked on me. They always made sure I'm doing well. Somebody be down the hall. Hey, Jones, you all right, man? Hey, I know it's different. And I'll be like, yeah, I'm good. But seriously, they always checked on me. Shout out to Tori Takel, shout out to Fernando Lovo, shout out to Coach Niver, who is right next to me. Shout out to Alex Brown, shout out to the strength staff, Yancey McKnight, Rod Grace, shout out to Doc O'Shea, shout out to all of them. Shout out to Jason Washington, the whole staff, Coach Herman, everybody. They made sure that I knew what was going on and that I was okay in my first training camp. This was huge, and I really, truly appreciate them because I literally hit a wall. Here's the story. It's about the 4th or 5th day of camp. I don't know what day it is. I don't know what day it is. I don't know what time it is. I'm sitting in my desk. I'm sleep deprived. I'm on my computer. Somebody's alarm goes off. I get up. I start running. Boom. I hit the wall. I literally fall down on my couch in my office, and I'm knocked out for a 2-hour nap. That literally happened. And so I woke up and was like, man, did I miss something? Is everything okay? They were like, you're good, Jones. But they checked on me. So if you're in the role player development, check on all the newcomers. I took what they did at the University of Houston, and that next year, for the next 2 years at Houston, I made sure I checked on the newcomers. When I was at Kansas, my second year, I made sure I checked on the newcomers. It was just something I kept from them. So if you're in the role, check on all the newcomers. That's players and that's staff. Make sure everybody is good. You heard the video. The newcomers need you. They need you. They need to know that there's someone checking in on them. Even the newcomer parents, right? Check on them is very important. Now, you have heard me say a couple times, talk about in these videos and just now talk about my time at the University of Houston, my time at the University of Kansas, and my time at Baylor. I wrote a book called The Player Development Guide, where it outlines the Beyond the Field program that I use at all these stops. Yes, it outlines the programs and initiatives I use. That book could be in your email today. Click the link in the show notes, the Player Development Guide book. It'll be an ebook, $20. It's yours today. All right, let's move on to tip number 3. Tip number 3, you need to have a system of checks. Now, some of you all probably heard that and thought about your government class in high school or college where checks and balances, but I'm talking about a system of checks. There's a lot of things that you will check throughout the year that you can take care of right now, okay? And so this is very important, a couple of them, and I'll talk about them in the video. Driver's license, right? You need to have those. Housing, right? And classes. Those are things that you need to start preparing. You have a lot of time that will help you with tip number 4, which I'll save for later, that can help prepare you for that. So check out this video on the system of checks that you need in the player development role. Checkmate. All right, we're not playing chess, but for fall camp, tip number 3, have a system of checks. You got to be like Nike out there, have a system of checks. But this is very, very important during fall camp. Now, in the role, you're gonna be doing a lot of checks. That could be breakfast checks, meeting checks, just different checks. Practice, guys coming out practice, you're always gonna check. And if you listen to the tip I gave, please go and check out the playlist, player development tips. Laminate anything you have to check, but you need to have a system of checks. Let's dive deeper into that. Today, we're continuing our fall camp series as you all are in fall camp who are watching, who are associated with different sports, specifically football. And today's tip number 3 is have a system of checks. Now, I already talked about it in the opener, talked about breakfast checks, meeting checks, different checks like that. Here are a few underrated checks that over my career, I learned during fall camp. Number 1, check system you should have during fall camp is driver's license. What I did is, and what we did, shout out to Tori Takel at the University of Houston, and I took it with me at different places. We had names of our players. We had when their driver's license were going to expire. A lot of your players arrive on campus. I was in the state of Texas. I don't know if other states do this, but they arrive either 16, 17, 18 years old. But in the state of Texas, you had to change the license at 21. So you went from a vertical to a horizontal driver's license. So you want to make sure you know who is up for a new license and who has an expired license. This is important because during the season, when you travel and you're chartering, you're getting on a plane, they will not be able to get on that plane without that renewed license or the current actual license. So make sure you have a driver license chart and you know who's expiring, and you're taking time during camp when there's breaks before school starts, season starts, to ensure that they get a new renewed license. Or you may have some athletes who don't have a license. Make sure you're taking care of that. Number two is housing. A lot of players during fall camp, everywhere I've been, their leases end during camp. How can that happen? Come on. But their leases end during camp. And you need to make sure that you know those dates, because what they'll do if you don't tell them, if you don't work it out, is they'll come tell you the morning of a practice, hey coach, look out. I need to move out my apartment in like 2.5 hours. You're like, bro, how long you knew this? Like, we doing this right now? Seriously? So you want to make sure that you talk to everybody on the team. What I used to do is talk to the housing people too. Hey, how y'all doing? Whose leases are being whose leases are ending here soon, because that can be a huge cog in the wheel if they come in and you got to go tell the head coach, hey, so-and-so has to move out of his apartment. I just found out, coach, it's not a good look. So make sure you have a check system for housing. Who's leaving, who needs to move, and where are they moving to? That is huge. So you want to make sure they have a place to move into. And then number three thing for fall camp is you want to start getting with your academic team. Shout out to all the academic teams I work with over my career. And you want to start talking about classes and enrollment. They will already be enrolled, but you want to talk about understanding their class schedule, when they have classes, the class conflicts with the season practice schedule. You want to start figuring that out now, because there may be space to change either a practice time or either the class times, but you want to start looking at the class structure of your athletes. Are there conflicts? Do we need to switch someone else to another class? Are there different things? Maybe there's something that opened up, a class that wasn't open, that opened up to help them with the degree, but you want to get with your academic team and make sure you have those checks. Hey, if those checks help you, please like and subscribe here. But once again, the 3 checks that you need to make sure you have a system or understanding of or just oversee during fall camp are driver's license, housing, and class structure conflicts that could happen throughout the year. Once again, you heard it. You heard it. Those 3 checks you need: driver's license, housing, and then classes for school. Start getting prepared for that, okay? Those are things that you need. Get those done immediately. It helped me in the role as I got deeper into the role, helped me big time to get that done. Are you looking for an elite, top tier level player development learning experience? If you are, I want you to join the player development cohort. That link is in the show notes. It will be a multi-week cohort where you will collaborate with others, and I will share everything I learned in the role to help you create a plan and create your own program that will benefit and create generational impact in the lives of others. Click the link in the show notes, player development cohort. All right, tip number 4. It's time to get ready for school, okay? Tip number 4 is to get ready for school. You're in camp. You have a great opportunity to take care of a lot of things right now. You could be preparing for school. School's gonna come at the end of camp. When I was at the University of Houston, some of our players actually had school during fall camp, or they were in classes during fall camp. So you have a great opportunity to prepare for that, okay? You're meeting with academic staff. Shout out to all the academic staffs I work with. They're there as well. Get with them and prepare for school. What are your players gonna have to see? What do they need to go? Where are the buildings at? Create a plan. You know what? I'm not gonna take all the fire. I'm gonna let this video tell you more about the 4th tip. Check it out. All right, fall camp is ending. The rosters are starting to get set. You're preparing for the first week of school. You're preparing for the first game of the year. But here is the 4th tip of fall camp. The 4th tip of fall camp is you got to get prepared for school. Start preparing for school. It's coming. It's unavoidable, of course, because they're student athletes. They have to be students. You're at a university. That has to happen. Come on. So start preparing for school. Now, I'm going to tell you what to prepare for, how to prepare for it, and just other things, other tips there. As I said, fall camp is ending. My 4th tip in our fall camp series is to prepare for the school year. How do you do this? Okay, we talked about it in tip 3. You already started to look at classes and class conflicts. Guess who doesn't or may not know where all their classes are? Now, the newcomers, your freshmen, your transfers, they probably took a course in the summer as a requirement of the 3 hours they have to have. But do they know where every building's at? Probably not. I bring this up because I worked at a university where one of my coworkers was frustrated because the freshmen were blowing their phone up. I don't know where this is at. I don't know where this is at. And this coworker was like, how do they not know where these buildings are? Because they don't know where the buildings are. We did not take them out and tell them or show them where their classes are. So this boggled me. I was just like, wow, we're here to serve and that's happening. But anyway, so what I did from that point on was I got in the cart. I found the players. Hey, where you at? I'm going to take you to class. And from that point on in my career, and shout out to the academic staffs who were already big on this. I work with some academic staff that had the tours and they already took care of all this. But I made sure I reached out to every newcomer. Do you know where you're going? Do you need me to either walk or show you on the cart where your class will be? This is important. Number one, they're going to walk in class. Everybody's going to know they're an athlete at certain universities, especially if you got the big guys. You know, there's some guys that can get away, but not most of your team. And number two, it gives them comfortability walking in the first day of school. Who wants to start their first day of school not knowing where to go? it's hot, you know, on campus because it's August. You don't know where to go. You got a coach telling you to sit in the front. You're going to show up 15 minutes late. Somebody's going to mark you for being late. It's just a lot that just a lot of stuff that could be avoided if you start preparing for the school year. That is making sure they know where to go for their classes. That is making sure, once again, they know the schedule. Hey, these are places where you can eat lunch. Your card, we did red card at some places. These places on campus, if you're on scholarship, these places you can go to, these are the places you can go, to get a meal. Hey, here's the bookstore. You just never know. Hey, here's different places here. This is where you go for certain information if you're looking for this. You just want to make sure that you cover all the bases that they have. Once again, their mind has been on football for the last 4 weeks, and now it's time for them to get prepared to go to class, to learn, to do assignments, to meet new people. And so you want to make sure that you're doing everything you can to make that first day of school for the newcomers. Even you might want to ask some of your old heads too, because some of the old heads might have done some online courses for a couple of years. Now they're back on campus, but you want to make sure your players are prepared for the first day of school. That also could be supplies, books. They would already gotten their books for their own scholarship, but just understanding they know where to go. They know which academic advisor they're going to come to. They understand that schedule throughout the day of the requirement of being a student while being an athlete. Make sure you take care of that in fall camp. Get a head start on that. It will help you greatly. Trust me, it will be big. Thank you so much for checking out this fall camp series. That is the end of the fall camp series. Shout out to you all who are with teams in fall camp, making an impact daily. Thank you for what you've done. Thank you for enduring the heat, the moisture, humidity, different things like that. But thank you for being there and encouraging your athletes during fall camp. Once again, fall camp is a great opportunity for you to create impactful impact. It's a great opportunity for you to create impact in the lives of the newcomers and all the players that you have there. And so fall camp, do not look at it as like, oh, it's fall camp. Now it's a lot. Fall camp time, you're there all day, different things like that. I get that, but it's a great opportunity to get to know the players and for them to trust you, which is one of the most important things there. Getting them to trust you and building that relationship or building those relationships with the team. So to recap, the 4 tips, you need to know the schedule every single day. Check on your newcomers, have a system of checks, specifically with driver's license, housing, and classes. And number 4, prepare for school. Those are the 4 tips that will help you in player development in fall camp. It doesn't matter if you were the college football team. It doesn't matter if you were the high school team. It doesn't matter what sport you're with. It's all going to help. So hopefully you enjoyed it. Please press the like button if you got any value from this video. Subscribe and share this with somebody who's going through fall camp. And to all those of you who are in fall camp, keep going. I know it's tough. I know you're going to be there lots of hours. Keep going. You are needed. And if there are any athletes watching this, hey, I hope you have a great fall camp. I hope you stay healthy. Go out there and compete and get that spot that you want. As I always say, go out and create generational impact. Don't wait. Create that generational impact today. Fall camp. I can smell it.